So that's waiving due process. What Mangioni's attorneys are arguing, yeah, the attorney general, she's supposed to kind of be the embodiment, innocent till proven guilty, yet Pam Bondi wants to execute Luigi Mangione for Instagram likes, the defense claims. She ordered the death penalty and publicly released her order so she would have, quote, content for her newly launched Instagram account.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Luigi Mangione, the alleged shooter of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, has been formally indicted by a federal grand jury in Manhattan for allegedly killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. There was a criminal court hearing set for today. In this case, that has now been postponed, we believe, to next week. So we were going to go today on the ground, but it has been postponed. So we will be there whatever day it happens next week. Let me give you the details on the federal grand jury indictment, which came down late yesterday. Luigi Mangione indicted on federal charges for CEO killing. A federal grand jury in New York on Thursday returned a 4-count indictment against alleged CEO killer Luigi Mangione that charges him with 2 counts of stalking, firearms offense, and murder through the use of a firearm, a charge that makes him eligible for the death penalty if convicted. Attorney General Pam Bondi has already signaled her intention to pursue the death penalty, which his lawyers are actively trying to stop. I will have more on that effort to block the death penalty in a minute or two. Earlier this month, Bondi said in a press release that she ordered the death penalty for Mangione to carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Oh boy, is he making America safe again, right? Defense attorney Karen Friedman-Agnifilo argued in a motion filed last week that Bondi's statement issued before Mangione was indicted on federal charges was improper and, quote, prejudiced the grand jury process. She asked the judge to preclude the government from seeking the death penalty, and she demanded the government turn over documents and notes that relate to the attorney general's directive. Quote, the stakes could not be higher. The United States government intends to kill Mangione as a political stunt, the defense said. So a lot to get to here. Obviously, we now have officially 3 criminal cases against him. And that is a lot for any defendant, whatever you think of Mangione. That's a lot of balls to juggle. But this particular one, the federal indictment from the beginning, a lot of lawyers were kind of surprised because typically in a targeted case like this, you wouldn't have federal charges. This would be a state matter. So a lot of lawyers were kind of surprised that the federal government came in. Then you had the expediting of the death penalty. Typically, let me read this from the New York Times. Typically, deliberations over whether to seek the federal death penalty could take a year or more in the Southern District. That's the Southern District of New York and the Justice Department. Attorney General Bondi's swift announcement was all the more unusual given that Mangione has yet to be formally indicted in federal court. So obviously this article came out before the federal indictment that just came down yesterday. But the point stands, Department of Justice, typically it takes about a year to deliberate. It goes through a process whether a defendant or a case would be eligible for the death penalty. Typically, they would not make a decision until a formal indictment came out. You have Pam Bondi going on cable news, posting on Instagram about if there ever was a case for the death penalty, this is it. Basically, in so many words, saying Mangione was guilty before he's even had a trial. Kind of the opposite of what the Attorney General and the Department of Justice are supposed to do. You're supposed to, in America, be innocent towards proven guilty, but obviously a lot has changed under Mr. Trump and Trump 2.0. Let me read to you some of Mangione's attorney's court filing. This is from Wednesday. So Mangione's attorney, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, this court filing is Mangione's attorneys responding to the government's response to them. I know that could get confusing, but basically Mangione attorneys about a week or so ago filed a motion contesting the federal government's targeting Mangione with the death penalty. Then the government responded to that initial motion. So now this one is Mangioni's attorneys responding to the government's response. Dear Judge Ramos, we are in receipt of the government's letter dated April 14th in response to Mr. Mangioni's motion filed April 11th, 2025. We submit this letter in reply. The government has not responded to the other 4 points raised in defendant's motion. 1, ordering the Attorney General to certify that she read Local Rule 23.1. I'm not going to BS you. I don't know what Local Rule 23.1 is, but it is, to me, the Attorney General, Mangioni's attorney, is basically poking at the Attorney General that she's clearly, essentially, disregarding basic state law in New York through the seeking of the death penalty in this expedited fashion. Number 2, restraining the Attorney General from making extrajudicial statements in violation of Rule 23.1. That's referring to what I just talked about. She went on Sunday morning television shows and talked about this case, basically called Mangione guilty before he had a trial. She's posting about it on Instagram about seeking the death penalty against him. So all these extrajudicial statements, Mangione's attorneys are arguing clearly prejudice and make an impression on a grand jury. And this filing came before the formal grand jury indictment. So Mangione's attorneys are basically saying the Attorney General of the United States was influencing and prejudicing potential jurors. Number 3, ordering the government to produce for in-camera inspection any documents from the Southern District of New York and the Attorney General's consideration of the death penalty. In criminal parlance, in camera means behind closed doors. No cameras, not open to the public, just prosecution, defendant in front of a judge behind closed doors. Number 4, ordering the government to produce documents of communications between the government and anyone advocating for any particular sentence by or on behalf of any business, corporate interests, lobbying, or other party directly or indirectly. Bingo, bingo, sirens. This is the big one here. Let me read it again. Ordering the government to produce documents of communications between the government and anyone advocating for any particular sentence by or on behalf of any business, corporate interest, lobbying, or other party directly or indirectly. Why I am emphasizing that part, I don't know for sure. Pretty confident Mangione's attorneys think that United Healthcare, other powerful for-profit healthcare corporations, potentially other corporations unrelated to the healthcare industry, have pressured, lobbied the Trump Department of Justice to throw the book at Mangione, to throw away the key, for lack of a better phrase, to seek the death penalty. We saw after the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, she was creating special hotlines, phone hotlines for worried CEOs to call in if they felt threatened. We had reports of private security firms. Their phones were off the hook with big corporations calling them to try and beef up security. So you got, corporate America wants private hotlines where they could call the politicians they've already paid off, asking for special treatment and special protection. Private security, being flooded. We need extra protection. So it would be reasonable, considering that Pam Bondi just so quickly expedited. And when we say Pam Bondi, we're talking about the Trump administration. She's the Attorney General, but obviously this is Trump, under the Trump purview, and Trump has made very clear he wants to bring back the death penalty as much as possible. So I think this is Mangione's defense lawyer saying, we want all documentations because we think that there's communications between United Healthcare and others pressuring the government. Throw the book at this guy, lynch him if you have to make a point. Let me read some more from this court filing. Local Rule 23.1 exists as part of this court's more general supervisory authority to ensure the fair administration of justice exists both in the courts and the grand juries. Of course, the particulars of how evidence is presented is the province of the prosecutor. On this point, the government stated that the defense should not be, quote, able to dictate through the authority of the court the manner in which the government presents evidence to the grand jury. The defense agrees with this statement, but this is not what we are trying to do. Rather, we seek the court's intervention only to prevent seating a grand jury whose members have been infected with the Attorney General's improper comments. There is no serious question that the Attorney General violated Local Rule 23.1. It is so obvious that the government did not even attempt to mount a response to our initial motion. To summarize, the Attorney General, a, quote, lawyer associated with the investigation, made, quote, extrajudicial statements that provide ample basis to believe would, quote, prejudice the administration of justice, since she spoke publicly about, one, her past history as a capital crimes prosecutor, two, that if there was ever a death penalty case, this is one, three, that she herself has been threatened because of this case, four, that a reason for seeking the death penalty is that the victim was a CEO. That's exactly what I was just referring to, special treatment that Brian Thompson is getting, and I think pressures that the Department of Justice was getting from corporate America. Five, that Mangione is guilty, and six, that Mangione committed two statutory aggravating factors and should be executed. Note, too, that the Attorney General in all of her statements never mentioned the small matter of the presumption of innocence. Let me repeat, that tiny small matter of the presumption of innocence, or even that Luigi Mangione is yet to be indicted on federal charges. You know how in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you know how in the case of the 238 Venezuelans who were just rushed out of America, flown to a prison camp, a torture camp in El Salvador, there's the whole, hey, that due process thing, that's so 1780. We don't need due process in America anymore. And that's the whole argument where you even have conservative judges, like hardcore Reagan lovers, conservative judges saying, oh, yeah, Trump, he's like moving over to Pinochet territory here. This is insane. This is totally unconstitutional, what's Trump doing? So that's waiving due process. What Mangione's attorneys are arguing, yeah, the Attorney General, she's supposed to kind of be the embodiment, the symbol of innocent, presumption of innocence, innocent till proven guilty, yet she's on Sunday news shows, basically calling him guilty. She's Instagramming. Let me read this. Pam Bondi wants to execute Luigi Mangione for Instagram likes, the defense claims. Defense attorneys for Luigi Mangione are arguing that Attorney General Pam Bondi is seeking the death penalty for their client as, quote, content for a new Instagram account, according to a Friday court filing. She ordered the death penalty and publicly released her order so she would have, quote, content for her newly launched Instagram account, Mangione's attorneys wrote. The defense team is asking the court to block the government from seeking the death penalty. They argue that Bondi's announcement of the move was a, quote, political stunt and that she failed to indicate Mangione's presumption of innocence. They say that her death penalty media blitz on April 1st has prejudiced the potential pool of grand jurors against their client, who is yet to be indicted on federal charges. So again, the New York Times story I read for you, that Daily Beast story I read for you, that was all before the official federal grand jury indictment came down. Let me finish reading to you Mangione's lawyers' court motion that came on Wednesday, a day before the federal grand jury indictment officially came down. In our April 11, 2025 motion, counsel requested 6 forms of relief. 1, preclude the government from seeking the death penalty. 2, order that any proposed federal grand jurors be screened for exposure to the Attorney General's prejudicial public statements, order the Attorney General to certify that she read Local Rule 23.1, restrain the Attorney General from extrajudicial statements in violation of the rule that could prejudice Mr. Mangione's rights to a fair hearing by a grand jury, including the grand jury's consideration of death-eligible offenses and factors. 5, order the government to produce for in-camera inspection any memorandum. The government failed to challenge these requests. So there you have it, folks. I think that Luigi Mangione's attorneys will continue to oppose the seeking of the death penalty. Anything could happen. There's 3 different criminal cases against him. I think there's going to be a battle between the state of New York, that's District Attorney Alvin Bragg, infamously charged and convicted President Trump over his, porn star payoffs case. I think there's going to be kind of a space race here between the federal government and the state of New York and who's going to go first to bringing him to trial. I also think, frankly, what is the motivation here? What is the motivation here to speed all this through? Speed up seeking the death penalty. Speed up the trial. As I just told you, typically the DOJ takes a year to decide on a death penalty or seeking the death penalty. To me, I think the federal government rightly sees, hey, there's a different crisis every hour. In normal times, if when the president wasn't gutting the federal government, when the president wasn't appointing the world's richest man to gut the federal government, when the president wasn't doing an insane tariff war that's going to hike everybody's prices, when the government wasn't illegally deporting people who are legally here, under normal times when media was not scrambling in 7 different directions to cover the every hour crisis, this would be a big deal. This could be a case similar, I don't know about OJ, but it could be one of those made for TV court cases where all the media cameras are there and you got cable news covering it and the New York Times and independent outlets. You have hundreds, if not more people possibly outside when it goes to trial. I think they're banking on there's so much going on and more to come because it's Trump and the Trump circus. And I think just straight up fascism going on, that we could kind of ram this thing through with little fanfare or buzz. That's why I think they're trying to expedite this. They want to kind of get this to trial quickly. They want to convict him and then seek the death penalty as quickly as possible because they're banking on there's just not going to be enough attention, not enough attention span, not enough media to cover it. We will cover it. No matter what, we're going to cover it because, as we've always said, this is not just about Luigi Mangione, who, again, it's alleged. I'm not a fanboy. I'm not here to tell you, go get your guns, shoot down CEOs. I've made clear, I don't think violence is the way. I think if we all became violent against corporate America, it would boomerang back on us 10 times worse. I don't think violence is the way, even though it's alleged at this point what he did. With that said, this is about something much bigger than Luigi Mangione. This is about a system that is murdering way more people than Luigi Mangione allegedly did. This is about a murderous capitalist system that is literally commoditizing not only water, but basic life or death, because that's health. And we should not live in the wealthiest country on earth. And literally you could die if you just don't have enough money to pay for treatment. We will stay on this. Please, please support Status Coup and our on-the-ground independent coverage. Like I said, we will be out there covering the court case, which we believe it was supposed to be today. It's been moved to tomorrow. We will cover it on the ground live next week, whenever that happens. Support Status Coup for as low as $5 a month. I really need your help. We just hired a reporter. We want to hire a producer, which we badly need. We want to expand and use more reporters around the country. We do not take any money from the massive donors funding the Republican and Democratic Party. We don't take money from United Healthcare. We don't take money from Cigna, Goldman Sachs, and the rest of the usual suspects. Please support us. $5 a month. That's all I'm asking. That's 16 cents a day. Thanks for watching.